I see like 3, 4 niggas running through the crib, all black, mask on, running through the crib and shit. One nigga run to the front door. I hop out, I start shooting. Bow, 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 bow. Shot the nigga. Bow, shot his ass. Bow, 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 bow. All the niggas run out the door, they run out the door. This nigga on the floor.
This land, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we do, we've cracked the human genome, we can do that. Why don't we do that? Would you be against doing that?
I have no idea what.
Have you seen this?
Abram's descendants are the ones who have the right to have this land, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we do genetic testing on everybody in the land and find out who Abram's descendants are? It's really simple. We've cracked the human genome. We can do that. Why don't we do that? Would you be against doing that?
I have no idea what that would prove. I mean,
Really?
maybe it would be.
What do you mean? It would prove who Abram's descendants are and who has a right to live here and who doesn't, according to the theology that you yourself just explained. And so I'm very confused as to why we don't do that. If you believe the theology that you just explained to me.
Would we do that all over the world?
Well, this is the only country in the world that you've said has this covenant with God, that this people have a moral and legal right to the land.
But there are people who may not have bloodlines, but who have converted to Judaism. Are they going to be able to live here? Are you going to kick them out?
By your standards, they can't live here.
No,
because you just told me that they have a right to live here because God gave them the land because they're the descendants of Abraham.
The descendants of Abraham. But if they're the spiritual descendants of Abraham and they've now decided that they're converting to Judaism, then do they have a right to live in Israel?
Since you began this conversation by asking me, did I think they had a right to come here?
Yeah.
That's what my question was, on what basis do they have the right?
Yeah.
And you said because God granted it to them.
And I also said because that there should be a land where Jews can live in peace and safety. And
I asked you what a Jew was and you couldn't answer it. You said it partly is religious, but doesn't have to be. It's partly genetic, but it doesn't have to be. And so that you can see why I'm confused.
I think I was very clear.
Bibi's family, we know they lived in Eastern Europe. There's no evidence they ever lived here. He's not religious.
But
in what sense? How do we know that? Do you have his family tree? No, we don't.
Do you?
He doesn't. No one does. That's the point.
But
so how do we know that he has any connection to this land at all?
And if there has been a practice of Judaism and a connection to the language, the Bible, the land.
His ancestors didn't. He doesn't practice Judaism in any rigorous way. His ancestors didn't live here. They didn't speak the language, and there's no evidence they ever lived here. So in the territory that Israel controls today, particularly in the West Bank, who through genetic testing, we can know their families have been here for thousands of years. We don't know whether they practiced Judaism, whether they were Samaritans, pre-Islam. We don't know that. A lot of them we know have been Christians for 2,000 years. They have less of a right to the land than someone whose ancestors, the only thing we know about them this way. His ancestors didn't live here. They didn't speak the language, and there's no evidence they ever lived here. So in the territory that Israel controls today, particularly in the West Bank, who through genetic testing, we can know their families have been here for thousands of years. We don't know whether they practiced Judaism, whether they were Samaritans, pre-Islam. We don't know that. A lot of them we know have been Christians for 2,000 years. they have less of a right to the land than someone whose ancestors, the only thing we know about them is they lived in Latvia or Poland. They're Eastern European. How does that work?
This is the wildest conspiracy I have seen in a very long time, and it has Trump. So there's a series of books written in the late 1800s by a man named Ingersoll Lockwood. It's about a kid named Baron Trump, and you can't make this up. Baron Trump lived in a castle called Castle Trump, and he had a mentor that goes by the name Don. Baron can be described as a wealthy, intelligent, witty, but arrogant young boy. And in one of the books, they go through a series of adventures with his mentor named Don. They read these manuscripts and discover portals, underground civilizations, and dark forces. This is when it gets even crazier. One of the books is named The Last President. It takes place in 1896, and it's about an election of an unexpected popular president, and protesters take this to the streets, mainly in New York City, where riots break out in response to the shocking election result. The panic stems from the fear that the new leader, who is deeply anti-establishment and opposed by Wall Street elites, will upend the nation.
An 1889 novel called Baron Trump's Marvelous. It was written by Ingersoll Lockwood. He would go on to write another book called The Last President in 1900. Mystery which involves the Trump family, Nikola Tesla, time travel, and dark forces.
Wow.
So he follows the adventures of a young aristocrat named Baron Trump living in a castle named Castle Trump, which is fucking crazy. The character is described as intelligent, curious, and somewhat arrogant, guided by his mentor, Don. Baron embarks on fantastical journeys, including one to discover a magical portal in Russia.
Uh-oh. Putin connections confirmed.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
It's like, is this
That's
bullshit?
unbelievable.
Is life bullshit? Is life real?
Wow.
I think life's mostly real. But, this is the problem with the whole idea of simulation theory, is that if it's true, if there is a simulation, and the simulation, if we develop technology where the simulation becomes indiscernible from reality itself,
Right.
how will we know?
Right.
Maybe we'll know from goofy clues like that,
Like this.
like silly coding,
Who
Easter
comes-
eggs that God leaves behind.
Imagine this, a book written in 1893 about a boy named Baron Trump. An aristocrat with ties to Russia, navigating. Now, imagine that boy shares more than just a name with a modern figure, the towering, enigmatic son of Donald Trump.
Here's a book. It's called Baron Trump, The Adventures of the Collection. It's called 1900 or The Last President, written in 1896. On page 315, you got chapter 1. And this is the last president right here. It's talking about in the city of New York, a mob creates, and it's a mob like a four-headed monster, breathing fire, flames race towards burst rage into the Union Square. And Fifth Avenue Hotel was the first to feel the fury of the mob. Guess what's on the Fifth Avenue? Trump Tower, 721, 725, Fifth Avenue, Midtown, Manhattan. And then the aged governor in response to the mayors, thank God we have saved the city. But the Republic. All right. Baron Trump. Adventures. Last president.
My opinion, El Religion Land, in my opinion, was just created in the 1900s. El Religion Land never existed before they created that amusement park in the 1900s. Now again, a lot of people are arguing that these people are Eastern Europeans didn't even come from the Levant. That's not my argument. I don't believe none of it. But I do agree with this opinion that these people are Eastern Slavics. Depends on where you lived at in this Eastern Slavic area, but you're still classified as an Asian. Whether you have the pale look and no slanted eyes, or slanted eyes with a jaundiced skin tone, or yellowish skin tone, or yeah, that part, you are still classified as Asian, Chinese, Japanese, Siberian, Czechs, Russians. Yeah, these are all Slavics. Now, that's what your boy was arguing about with the guy he was speaking to on the first video. He was saying, "Hey, look, even Bebe was tied to Eastern Europe, not the Levant, not the so-called Middle East. His family is tied to Eastern Europe. So Bebe's Bebe's great grandfather born in the Levant? Was his grandfather born in the Levant? Or was his triple back there, back dough, backflip, backflip again, back no, back twister, no hands, another backwards no? Was that grandfather born in the Levant? No, no, and no. You got to go back to 3300 BC, or they'll say 1200. You got to go back to 1200. That's when we got kicked out. But I thought y'all had a journey through Egypt. So Egypt ain't your homeland either. No, because you was about to go to Somalia and start some shit. Um, you had a few different places you wanted to try to go to create this land in the 1900s. So I'm not believing that you guys existed in the 1800s. Like I said, there's an ongoing debate about where the fuck y'all from. But it seems to be it ain't a debate no more. You guys are Eastern Asians or Slavics, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinion as well. Now, if you can prove this a fact, that is on you. Yeah, but let's go back to El Religion Land. Bang bang.
What if the Ottoman Empire never collapsed? The Middle East and the world would look completely different. Israel wouldn't exist because the land of Palestine would still be under Ottoman rule. World War I might never have unfolded the same way, meaning no British or French colonial borders in the Middle East. The Ottomans would control the Suez Canal, the Persian What if the Ottoman Empire never collapsed? The Middle East and the world would look completely different. Israel wouldn't exist because the land of Palestine would still be under Ottoman rule. World War I might never have unfolded the same way, meaning no British or French colonial borders in the Middle East. The Ottomans would control the Suez What if the Ottoman Empire never collapsed? The Middle East and the world would look completely different. Israel wouldn't exist because the land of Palestine would still be under Ottoman rule. What if the Ottoman Empire never collapsed? The Middle East and the world would look completely different. Israel wouldn't exist because the land of Palestine would still be under Ottoman rule. World War I might never have unfolded the same way, meaning no British or French colonial borders in the Middle East. The Ottomans would control the Suez Canal, the Persian Gulf, and the Bosporus, three of the world's most strategic choke points. Their empire would stretch from North Africa to the Balkans, over 30 modern countries, with more than 600 million people. With oil from Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Libya, they'd likely be one of the richest nations on earth.
So we see where the Ottoman Empire actually stood grounds according to their history. Now, the Ottoman Empire actually stood these grounds up until the 1900s. So again, so again, so again. How is that somebody else's land when we know for sure these people had that land from the 1600s to the 1900s? That's how we know it's all one continent over there. That canal is not tearing that landmass apart. It's still one landmass. That little canal is not dug deep enough to say that they're not still connected. Yeah. It's called Afro-Eurasia for a reason. Europe is not a fucking continent. You cannot separate yourself with your silly ass map no more. Europe is not a separate fucking land from Asia. Asia is not a separate land from Africa. Europe is not a continent. Again, there's only the Americas and Afro-Eurasia. You do have some large islands, but that's it. It's two continents. But you see here where we have Ottoman Empire, the areas they did have. So, and who was being brought here? Eastern Slavs. Now, mind you, these people over here were not the people over here. The people in the United Kingdom at the time, while this was going on, aren't the same people that are over here. These Northern European people are also dark skinned people. Now, in order to get an Arab or the Arab is the mixed baby, okay? The Arab is the mixed baby. So it would have been a Slav parent and a dark skinned dad. I mean, it would have been a Slav parent and a dark skinned parent in order to make an Arab kid. And let's just be real now. We got to be honest right now. That's the only way you can get that. Now you can have different generations, but those are mixed babies, man. So really, the Slav and the dark skinned person had to mix in order to create a mixed biracial race. That's what you're seeing over there in Saudi Arabia. Those are the babies of the Slavic slave trade in the Ottoman Empire. You gotta keep it real. Because, mind you, the Slavs were enslaved for years, for centuries in this red area. I'm not making it up. It's part of their fucking story. And don't act like y'all ain't heard this shit. That they had millions upon millions in this red area of what? Pale Slavic people as slaves, not indentured servants, slaves. Out there in the desert now. Now it's some beautiful lands out here now. But do they have growth out there? Food growth during this time from the 1600s to the 1900s. And mind you, you did have the Silk Road trade as well, which was also very diverse in slavery. So stop thinking that these African people were slaves. No, them African people had their own shit going on. Them people migrated. Those people were already there. It was the Slavs actually got kidnapped and brought to this red area. They're called pirates. The Ottoman Empire held millions of white slaves. That's my opinion, but there are some facts that can actually back that up. This North African area, millions of white slaves. I'm not making that shit up. It's actually in history books that are in all types of libraries, including the Library of Congress. Of course, of course. So, how did these Eastern Slavic people get to this red area to say that Israel is their homeland? Through fucking slavery. So, if anybody is saying that they're pure bred white, but you're Slavic, we can look at you and see that you're Slavic. No, you actually came from Eastern Europe and you were enslaved to these red lands. We got to keep it honest now. Y'all to put out this fake ass African slave trade story of how black people got in America. No, bitch. No, you motherfuckers was over there being enslaved. Stop trying to give us a story that you guys went through. Why y'all always trying to beat and batter the people with the good land? You gonna root off us? Switch spots? You gonna root off and Mortimer? You gonna Mortimer us? Fucking come on, Eddie. Don't let these niggas take our life. But that shit is real though. What happened is these first immigrants, I mean, for real, we gotta keep it honest. The first real wave of immigrants had enough power to change up the history once they got to America. Now you actually see why they were fleeing to America because this is what's been going on. You see what's going on in religion land right now. You got people just shooting firecrackers nonstop. Why? Because there's always been slavery over there. There hasn't not always been black American slavery here. That is a lie. How we got put into the predicament we're in is through paperwork. There were doctoring paperwork. They were changing our history on paper. We didn't have to go to war with these people. You need to relook at the Civil War situation as well. Hmm? Yeah, because they were not enslaving us in the South. I don't know why these stories made it out there and made it for so long alive. The first time a lot of people heard about slavery was the Roots movie. And we still don't believe that shit because it ain't us. We never believed it. It's a movie. Yeah. Nobody heard about that shit until fucking what? Nobody heard about slavery. A lot of people in the South didn't hear about slavery until they watched that Roots movie. And you know how many times they played that shit a day? 100. It was the only thing on one channel. It just kept redundantly playing. Now we see why they were trying to hypnotize our people and get the whole world to see that black people are beneath us. Let's take it farther. Not knowing that that video was to alter the mind of these immigrants to look at the Aboriginal like we're that black man, we're that African American. No. So now you got these new immigrants coming over here learning this shit like we the bad man. And I also hear that they're showing immigrants videos before they even get here of who not to mess with. And it just so happened to be the Aboriginal. The same motherfucker who's been carrying the world on their back. But you teaching these new immigrants to hate us before they even get here. Stereotype us. Now, we were the world traders at first, making sure everybody was good, the balance keepers. Now you done knock the fucking balance keepers back on a notch, motherfucker. And this time when we get the balance right, bitch, we ain't letting that shit just go to the lopside no more. Bitch, we're gonna keep a balance on balance on balance. Yeah, so stop changing other people's history and admit to your fucking slavery background. And stop using religion as a cover to cover up what actually happened, bitch. We can see you. Stop acting like y'all wasn't enslaved. And stop acting like, yeah, but you know what? This is very funny though. This is very funny because they were enslaved in the red area on this map by the Ottoman Empire. This is the same place they call their homeland, but they came from Eastern Europe. That's what they call it, but it's really Eastern Asia, because you could have been Siberians, you could have been coming from the Caucasus Mountains. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. When you got to that red spot, you were enslaved. And that whole Christian Muslim thing, I really think that's something new. Like I said, man, because the people they invented wasn't until 1900s to have a land for them to go to. Why the fuck they ain't have a land before then? And if they're getting kicked out everywhere, why? Who's fucking kicking people out? A whole nation of people? Huh? So you kicking them out. Why'd you kick them out? Huh? Maybe you didn't kick them out. Maybe slavery ended and you had to give them a home to go to. And this backstory of these people being rich and ruling the world, doubtful, highly doubtful, highly doubtful, highly doubtful. They ain't even got no land to go to. How you rule? You ain't ruling the world. The only reason why you're ruling the world now is because of the Federal Reserve System, propping all of these countries up to make sure that the Aboriginal never grabs hold to anything. Huh? We would have to recreate our own money. We would have to start doing our own voting system for our own people. And whoever else wants to get involved. Yeah, because we the balance keepers. We ain't got no time for all this fucking fighting all day. Like I said, cheers to good life and longevity. Bang, bang. I mean, we don't want no part of this religion land, a fireworks show.
Rivaling the US and China. Militarily, their control over Europe, Asia, and Africa would make them a global superpower, maybe even the center of the modern world.
How did the Ottoman Empire conquer all this? In 1299, Osman I established the Ottoman dynasty as a tiny beylik in Anatolia. Due to the collapse of the Byzantines and the disunity of Christians, they expanded. Bursa became the capital in 1326, and from there they crossed into Europe, defeating Christian kingdoms. With the capture of Constantinople in 1453, the Ottomans became a significant political force. Their influence was further increased by the capture of Mamluk Egypt in 1517 under Selim I. During the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent, there was a considerable surge in European expansion, marked by victory at the Battle of Mohács and the Siege of Vienna. The empire's enormous conquests were made possible by the lack of unity among its rivals, its strategic military, administration, and gunpowder weaponry prowess. Subscribe, join, and click our link below to learn more about
For over 300 years, the coastlines of England were at the mercy of Barbary pirates from the coast of North Africa, who attacked and plundered the English men and women into slavery in North Africa. By the early were at the mercy of Barbary pirates from the coast of North Africa, who attacked and plundered the English Channel, Ireland, Scotland, and Iceland, capturing over 1 million British men and women into slavery in North Africa. By the early 17th century, the situation was so bad that an entry in the Calendar of State Papers in May 1625 stated, "The Turks are upon our coasts. They take ships, only to take the men to make slaves of them." Did Africans really enslave Europeans? How did it happen? For the next 5 minutes, we will provide you further details of what really happened on 5 Minutes Infographics. When were Europeans enslaved? The earliest contact with the pirates was in the Elizabethan period, when British explorers and merchants first ventured into the Mediterranean. They were attacked and seized by the pirates, who sold the crew into slavery and demanded ransoms for the merchants. In the first half of the 1600s, the Barbary pirates, coming from what is now Algiers and other ports in North Africa, were authorized by their governments to attack the shipping of Christian countries, where they grabbed ships and sold the sailors into slavery. Admiralty records show that during this time, the pirates plundered British shipping pretty much at will. As 18th century historian Joseph Morgan put it, this I take to be the time when those corsairs were in their zenith. A new study suggests that 1 million or more European Christians were enslaved by Muslims in North Africa between 1530 and 1780. A dissertation, Barbary Pirates, British Slaves, and the Early Modern Atlantic World, 1570 to 1800, by Catherine M. Steyer, University of Pennsylvania, considers the enslavement of Britons in the Barbary states between 1570 and 1800, and reevaluates the demographics of the problem, concluding that more than 26,000 were enslaved, whereas few of those
Bang, bang. Got to turn my mic off. But I'm back anyway. So they do say it's over 1 million and it's way up there over 1 million. So we're just talking about North Africa now. Not unless all of those Caucasian or pale skinned people are actually from Africa. But there's a lot of people in North Africa now that never left after that slavery, huh? So it's well over 1 million. So either those millions, I'm talking about double digit millions of pale skinned North Africans from 1500s, they're saying from 1500s to the 1800s. But I got other sources that say from 1500s to the 1900s, it was still going on. So wait a minute. And this is just North Africa. I ain't even, the Levant area had them as well, because remember, that was Palestine. They were holding white Slavic slaves. Why you think they're over there beefing with each other? Huh? Why you think they're over there beefing with each other? One of them held the other one as a slave. They're using religion as a cover story. One of them just still mad. One of them still mad. They mad about that shit. Huh? Were these pale-skinned people enslaved in Afro-Eurasia? Yes. Yes, and yes. That's how you can't have an Atlantic slave trade, because they're being enslaved in Afro-Eurasia. At the same time, they say they snatching people from Africa. Use a motherfucking lie. So all of y'all are being enslaved, but you got time to build ships and sail to Africa to get slaves, sail to America. No, what happened is, once you got to America, the Americans actually helped your ass out. The real Americans. I'm talking about the Aboriginals before all this name change and shit came about. The real Americans, the Aboriginal, the so-called black Indians, the so-called original Indians. These people helped your ass out, and this is what we get in return. Can't sit here type signs. bottom of the totem pole type shit. You can only be an entertainer type shit. Yo, 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 yo. But the whole time, you motherfuckers are over there. What is it? Not even second class. You motherfuckers are the slaves for these people. Do we have anything to do with that? So why'd y'all all run over here? Now we see why the pale skinned people were fleeing back in the days to get here. No food, famine, and you're in a constant fucking fireworks show with the people that enslaved you first over there. When you got here, what happened? We may have done some things, but we showed you guys the way. I'm pretty sure because you learned a lot from the actual Americans, and you took that and you went over there and said, "Let my people go." That was recent. So this Moses story is for y'all. It ain't for us. Y'all were the ones enslaved. It ain't for us. We ain't no lost tribe of nothing. We were never enslaved in Egypt, none of that shit. That sounds like your story. According to the Ottoman Empire, not me. Not me. I didn't write the shit. They wrote it. They said they were enslaving y'all. So how are you fucking picking up Africans and bringing them to America? I don't believe it. Huh? I don't believe it. Uh-huh. You should have been over there fighting them folks. What you mean? Huh? Now you're using our intelligence from here in America to fight people overseas, huh? Because you don't want to ever go back to that enslaved moment that you people had to go through. Now I see why they used the word ghetto for you guys before they put the ghetto on the Aboriginal Americans. Hmm? 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 Oh, the switcheroo is crazy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We about to erase all that history that you motherfuckers have done over the last past centuries. Yeah, yeah, we ain't got nothing to do with you motherfuckers overseas. Fleeing to America. Go back over there and finish your fight or be nice while you're here. We don't want all that shit going on. We don't. Why you bringing that shit to our front door? That shit ain't got nothing to us. Nothing to do with us. Go take that shit back over there to your front door. That's where you guys got into that little fucking fight at. Stay over there with that shit. Stop making our shit go up over here. And you know what, Trumpster? Why are we supporting all this shit anyway? That's why I got a problem with your goddamn Cheeto face ass. Yeah, 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 yeah. You and your homeboy running amok over there. The mob malicious, a boxcar, boy gang, at it again, huh? Yeah, yeah, yeah. But now we see where you actually came from, huh? You came from enslavement. So you flee to America and you continue this fight to eradicate your slave owners. The Arab people. Now, we still know that at the top of the food chain, them motherfuckers in the back room slapping fire. I don't give a fuck what nobody say. They all motherfucking call each other. What you doing tonight, man? You know, I'm out here in this fucking cold weather in Russia and shit. Baby Dragface said that. I'm pretty sure him and his comedian buddy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We already know them two still friends. They're friends. They were friends before the motherfucker even got to the political seat. I'm talking about the comedian that was a comedian that's now running Ukraine. He was a fucking comedian, and your boy, Baby Dragface, was going to his shows. What? They knew each other. What? So, what? Stop it. If you motherfuckers keep playing, I'm going to let you play. But you just can't play outside on our playground with this religion land fireworks show, motherfuckers.
Those were redeemed. What was the level of enslavement? The attacks threatened England's fishing industry, with fishermen reluctant to put to sea. Sir John Eliot, that the seas around England seemed theirs. The situation was so bad that a committee for Algiers was set up by Parliament to oversee the ransoming of captives. In 1646, Parliament sent Edmund Casson to Algiers to negotiate the ransom and release of English captives, paying an average of £30 per man, and managed to free some 250 people before he ran out of money. Oliver Cromwell decided to take action and decreed that any captured pirates should be taken to Bristol and slowly drowned. Such was the extent of the Barbary terror that parish churches in Spain and Italy kept locked collection boxes marked for the poor slaves. England even set aside an Algerian duty from customs income to finance redemptions. Even Americans were not immune. One American slave reported that 130 other American seamen had been enslaved by the Algerians in the Mediterranean and Atlantic. Even Americans were not immune. One American slave reported that 130 other American seamen had been enslaved by the Algerians in the Mediterranean and Atlantic just between 1785 and 1793. What work did the slaves perform? The kidnapped, comprising public and private slaves, were sent to the slave markets of the Ottoman Empire to be bought as laborers, concubines, or pressed into the galleys, where they would man the oars. The public slaves were used to row the galleys in the pursuit of loot, working so strenuously that thousands died or went mad while chained to the oar. The private slaves worked as agricultural laborers, construction workers, or sold water around town for their owners. As they aged, or their owners' fortunes changed, slaves were resold. Many slaves converted to Islam, though, as Morgan put it, this only meant they were freed from the oar, though not from their patron's service. Christian women who had been taken as concubines often turned Turk to stay with their children, who were raised as Muslims. How many slaves were taken? In a new book, Robert Davis, professor of history at Ohio State University, calculated that between 1 million and 1.25 million Europeans were captured from the 16th to 18th centuries. Much of what has been written gives the impression that there were not many slaves and minimizes the impact that slavery had on Europe. Davis said, "How did Europe respond? The European nations responded by attacking the pirates in their home bases. Algiers was frequently attacked by the British, French, and Spanish, and in the early 19th century, the United States. A British-led attack in 1816 led to the release of more than 4,000 slaves, and the power of the Barbary pirates was finally destroyed by European sea power. What do you think of the European enslavement? Share your comments below. Follow our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more stories about extraordinary people, places, and events. Thanks for sharing your fives with us."
What I think about white slavery, I think you bitches lying. I think the numbers climb. It's way above 125 million. Huh? Because you're just talking about that one little spot in Africa. The Ottoman Empire circled that whole Mediterranean Sea. I'm going to need you to stop lying. Yeah. I'm going to need you to stop lying. So y'all was out there rowing boats and shit, huh? So again, how are you motherfuckers having the time to go snatch motherfuckers from Africa from the 1500s to the 1900s at any time? Huh? You know what? In my opinion, the whole story about you motherfuckers coming from anywhere and running amok on people is a motherfucking lie. Yeah. As we can see that Palestine has been there because the Ottoman Empire has been there. And the Ottoman Empire said they were getting a bunch of their white slaves from where? Eastern Europe, the Slavic people, right? Huh? So stop lying like you were up in the United Kingdom and shit. That shit happened later because you were also indentured servants in the United Kingdom. Then your boy King James says, let's clean our land. Let's send some of these indentured servants to America also. So somebody is lying because King James said he sent some white indentured servants to America. And what do you think they did when they got here? they were indentured servants. What do you think they were doing? They didn't come out here to be like, I got land. When I get over them, no, no, no. That's the story they tell you. So again, there is no such thing as an Atlantic slave trade because these people are actually in the slave trade as the slave, starring the slave, starring the slave. And that can't be your ass if they're being enslaved for 300 centuries that we know about straight. The only way they got out of that slavery is those indentured servants that got to America. Guess what? We was nice enough to not do you like them motherfuckers over across the street and enslave your ass redundantly nonstop. Again, that is how the curly bang people got to Palestine via indentured servitude. Via their whole story is about being indentured servants. But all of a sudden, when the Federal Reserve come, now they got a land, now they got a, now they got all this shit. You know why they got the shit? Because of the Federal Reserve. Huh? Huh? Who said so? What? Bitch, I ain't backing down. Big boots on. Bitch, what? Cat, 9 lives, bitch. Hey, out there in El Religion land, amusement park and shit. Fireworks always going off. Because why? They got a beef. You have the slave owner and the slave. And the slave was the pale skinned man, and the baby of the Slavic people and the black people that were in those areas made the Arab. So the Arab became also the slave owner over these pale skins. Because again, they had concubines. And what was the concubine color of these black people? White. So what do you get when you mix a white person with a black person? You're gonna get a mixed kid that just so happens to be the Arab. So the baby was still able to control the slave trade, while the Slavic person was still the slave. So, you think about that, huh? The mama created her slave master. Because once the white woman became engaged in sex and have a baby with a black person, the Arab pops out. The Arab is still free. But that Slavic person in those areas, what? Guess what? They're still a slave. I'm talking about during these times. Again, this is not my story. But if these black Africans had that many concubine white women that they were snatching up and selling, putting them in brothels during this time, how many babies you think came out of that? And what color those babies are? And where them fucking babies at? Huh? Them babies is them Arabs. That's why they out there fighting over this shit. Hey, look, bitch, one of us gonna go. And again, that has nothing to do with us Americans. And when I say Americans, I'm talking about the Aboriginal Americans that were in America. Got nothing to do with that fight over there. Y'all fled to America. Remember, you were not in America. You ran over here because you were looking for what? More food. You were looking for what? A place to stop fighting. But you came over here to fight the people across the street because they just can't come over here and fight because you know we here. It ain't got, and I'm just being honest, man. Look, stop bringing y'all motherfucking dog shit in a bag to our motherfucking door, knocking on that bitch and running, bitch.
It's on that spot that Muslims believe that the Prophet Muhammad ascended into heaven. And of course, it's right nearby that Christians believe Jesus was crucified and then rose to heaven. So on that spot, or right nearby, a lot has happened. But critically on that spot, because it was the place where Abraham brought Isaac, and again, to American ears, this sounds weird, but to the rest of the world, it's like, yeah, everyone knows this because it's the center of their lives. On that spot, Solomon built his famous temple. Now, in the Torah, it says pretty clearly, and correct me if I'm misreading it, that Jews, followers of God, can only publicly worship God and sacrifice on that spot, in that city, Jerusalem, on that spot. And on that spot was built a temple, the first temple, and that was destroyed by the Babylonians famously. And then it was rebuilt and later improved by Herod. And it was, at its completion, I think, the largest building, certainly the largest religious building in the ancient world. And it was in that building that Jesus preached, in what we call the Second Temple that Jesus preached, the very center of Judaism, building without which you can't really have Torah Judaism.
Hey, brother, America first or Israel first?
Have a good day.
Hey, sir, who are you serving? Who are you serving, sir? Who are you serving, bro? You're a third-rate Secret Service, bro. You look like a teenager could whoop you, bro. Who's got you as their Secret Service, bro? Is that a joke, bro? Is that a joke, bro? Bro, my 5-year-old son could whoop you, bro.
Did you know America's first war wasn't against Britain or France, but against the Ottoman Empire to stop Americans from being enslaved? After gaining independence, American ships were attacked by barbarians under the Ottoman Empire. They targeted white American sailors because the U.S. was seen as weak, unlike Britain or Spain, who could retaliate. These pirates enslaved Americans.
Those pirates did not enslave Americans. Will you stop lying? See, that's where their story will fuck you up. Yeah. El Religion Land lies be off the motherfucking Richter scale of lies. Bitch, you know they were not. You just said that they were getting people from where? United Kingdom and the Eastern Europe area. Now, to make the story have a lot of juice to it, you got to put America in it. They were snatching up American people. Boy, if you don't stop that goddamn line, ain't none of us Aboriginals ever been snatched up and taken to Africa. Your lying ass said that we got snatched up and taken from Africa. So, what Americans are you talking about at this time that were getting snatched up? You a motherfucking lie. Because how are they Americans if they coming from the United Kingdom? So you mean to tell me that Americans were selling to Africa and getting snatched up? But no, you're talking about white people. So those are not Americans during this time. You see how they can flip the motherfucking switch on your ass at any given time and start calling it. Well, you cannot call these people Americans at this time. They're being snatched from over there Afro-Eurasia. But to make the story have juice to it, they always got to sprinkle a little Aboriginal in it. They always got to sprinkle a little so-called Black American in it. Yeah, Americans were being snatched out for, boy, you're a motherfucking lie. Show me the ship that sailed from America and got snatched up in Africa. No, bitch, you motherfuckers are lying about this whole slave trade that y'all went through. And you done put the goddamn religion behind it and propped it up. That's what's going on here. Huh? You done ran to America to fight those people over there, enslaving your ass. And you ain't tell us. You ain't tell us, huh? You done ran over here, huh? All you motherfuckers over here. Yeah. We're gonna get smart and we coming back over there to whoop y'all ass. You dumb asses. That ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna work, you dumb ass. You know why? Because Americans are also not dumb. And the United States is also supporting the Arab countries. You know that, right? So I just don't get it because the oil infrastructure over there is the American infrastructure. They went over there and found the oil in Iraq, in Iran, and in Saudi Arabia. That's why American companies are always tied to those oil companies somehow. Because why? It was their equipment that got the shit out the ground at first. So all these countries that are saying that America has no control here, it's their equipment that pulled the oil out the ground for you motherfuckers. That's how you got rich. Huh? And guess who patented that shit first? The Aboriginal so-called black man, the Aboriginal so-called black Indian now, or just Indian. Yeah. That was their equipment. That they have been pulling oil out of the ground in America. There's nothing new. So stop acting like you motherfuckers have the equipment to pull oil up out of your goddamn ground over there in the desert. You didn't. Those people came from America and showed you how to get it out the ground. So that means that that equipment, the original equipment out there, the whole infrastructure, the whole pattern of how things are laid out came from somebody in America. Huh? So stop playing. Stop playing. So you got rich off the setup that somebody in America sailed over there to set up in the desert. So how are you guys fighting right now? You're not. The leaders ain't fighting. I don't care what nobody say. These leaders are not fighting. They're making sure that there's a population control going on. I don't know what the fuck y'all think. Yeah. People are really being hit out here. Yeah, the people are, not the leaders, dumbasses. Yeah. They are really shooting firecrackers over there, but not at the leaders, really. Those leaders are in their last age of life. 80 plus people are the leaders right now. The ones that they say got unalived, all those people are like 80 plus. Them people on some goddamn island living their best life. You think that Jekyll Island was the only island that they were hiding out on? Boy, them boys probably still at one of these spots all up. I'm telling you, playing tennis and shit. And fucking what you call them Dunkaroo shorts out there playing tennis and shit. Yeah. Sipping Martins and shit. Blowing big smoke with what you call those cigars. Yeah. Yeah. We back here. Got oil going up and shit. You got gas prices skyrocketing, food prices skyrocketing because y'all over there at this amusement park fucking playing games. Yeah. We peeped the play. I told you we peeping your play. We peeping the play. It has everything to do with population control. What? Only the fittest survive. But why? Why are you doing this? Cause you motherfuckers are crazy and don't got no feelings for nobody. You ain't got the right fucking electricity pumping through your motherfucking blood. I mean, who else would sit up all day to think of a way to? We got 100-year plan to make sure we're still in power. What the fuck is going on here? By hook or crook, bamboozling people, it don't matter. Why are we voting for this shit every? You know what? Who's gonna be voting this year? I hope you motherfuckers don't go out there and vote. Maybe this is what Trump was talking about. He's the last president because he already part of the motherfucking stage play, bitch. Do you want to be in the audience or you want to be in the stage play itself? You remember they put everybody on they wanted dead alive poster. That's why they over here shooting firecrackers everywhere. Talking about, yeah, we got some sleeper cells. Fuck, bitch, I don't give a fuck about a cell or a sleeper one. We ain't got shit to do with y'all, motherfucker. Y'all enslaved me, so we're gonna pay y'all back. And we're gonna come get the land that the Bible says ours. Didn't you already own the land? Didn't the UK give you that land by way of the Belford whatever the fuck they want to call these stupid ass papers they done doctored up and shit? How 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 you motherfuckers out here voting? Yeah, that's who I'm gonna check. Yeah, he's gonna be a good one for us. Yeah, and then you go out here and protest for these motherfucking people. You're making them gods. You're making them your idols. Yeah. Straight out the book. Straight out the book. These are your gods. These are your idols because I ain't seen not one invisible person come down and say shit still. But I see these humans out here shooting firecrackers at each other. Huh? Non-stop out there in amusement land. Hold up. Hold up, man. If you ain't picking up on the play, goddammit, look at here, you're getting played. Yeah. Kid and play, getting played. Non-stop. If this is the 80s and the 90s, that kid and play shit would, I mean, come on, man. Look, it's a big ass game that's going on. Those people were enslaved over there. It had to be by black people because how do you get a mixed looking Arab? Because the black people were sleeping with the Slavics and they made babies. And at that point in time, from the 1500s to the 1900s, a lot of Slavic people were enslaved around the Mediterranean area. Hmm? So, so is that how you got there, calling it your homeland now? Somebody hypnotized you, or you made the story up because, again, you got kicked out of somewhere to go to that land. It was never in your plan to go to that land. They just was trying to get y'all ass somewhere.
Castrated the men and used the women. When Thomas Jefferson tried negotiating, the Ottoman emissary told him, "We have the right to enslave you." That refusal forced the U.S. to build a navy and fight its first overseas war. Learn more about this overlooked chapter in history. Like, comment, and subscribe for more surprising stories.
How did the Ottoman Empire went from ruling 3 continents for over 600 years to total collapse after World War I? By the early 1900s, the Ottoman Empire was already falling apart. Empire went from ruling 3 continents for over 600 years to total collapse after World War I. By the early 1900s, the Ottoman Empire was already falling apart. It had lost most of its land in Europe and was struggling to hold on to the Middle East and North Africa. Then came World War I, and the Ottomans joined the losing side. After the war, the empire was picked apart. Britain and France carved up its Arab lands, turning them into new territories like Iraq, Syria, and Palestine. From the west, Greece invaded, hoping to take back former land. And at the same time, Armenians and Kurds pushed for independence. And inside Anatolia, Turkish nationalists rose up to take down the last traces of the old empire. By 1923, the Ottoman Sultan was gone and was replaced by the Republic of Turkey.
Why didn't the Ottomans conquer Persia? First, the rugged mountainous terrain presented significant logistical challenges, draining Ottoman troops and supplies. Persia's use of guerrilla tactics and scorched earth policies further weakened Ottoman advances. Religious differences fueled conflicts between the Sunni Ottomans and the Shiite Safavids. Despite multiple wars, the Ottomans struggled to maintain control over some Persian territories. Notable battles, such as the Battle of Chaldiran in 1514, initially showed Ottoman victories, but extended campaigns were unsuitable due to political strains. Also, the Safavids and later other Persian dynasties were powerful opponents, often reconquering lost territories. Internal conflicts and external threats from European powers diverted Ottoman attention, making a prolonged Persian conquest impossible. By the 19th century, the decline of the Ottoman Empire further diminished its ability to mount such an invasion.
The US and Israel pretend to be threatened by Iran's nuclear program. So they eliminated Iran's supreme leader, pushing for a regime change to make Iran less Islamic. But Iran had a secular democratic government in 1950, led by Prime Minister Mossadegh. But Mossadegh had a dangerous idea. He thought that the oil under Iranian soil belonged to the Iranians. So when he tried to nationalize Iran's oil, the British, in collaboration with the US, launched Operation Ajax, a CIA-backed coup to overthrow Mossadegh and install a puppet, the Shah of Iran. For 25 years, the Shah let foreign companies drain Iran's oil wealth and turned Iran into a police state loyal to Western interests. Then, in 1979, the people of Iran revolted. They overthrew the Shah and installed an Islamic government with Ayatollah Khomeini as supreme leader. And thus, the Iran problem that bothers the US today was created by the US itself 70 years ago. Stop.
In the 16th to the 19th century, pirates from the Ottoman Empire would capture and enslave European people from European coastal areas. Yes, white people. They would then transport them to North Africa. This was known as the Barbary pirate slave trade, as this was carried out by North African pirates from the Barbary states, which included places in present-day Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and parts of Libya.
The Ottoman Empire wasn't only known for its vast territory, but also its massive slave trade. Enslaved people came from all across the empire's borders, Africa and beyond. The enslaved were often used as domestic servants and soldiers. This includes the Janissaries, elite troops who were paradoxically military slaves and highly respected.
Donald Trump once said there was a man who taught him how to win. His name was Roy Cohn. The rule was simple: never apologize, never explain, and if someone hits you, hit them back so hard they never try again. For decades, Roy Cohn was one of the most feared men. Donald Trump once said there was a man who taught him how to win. His name was Roy Cohn.
I would do anything to get my client to win. Yes, I would.
His rule was simple: never apologize, never explain, and if someone hits you, hit them back so hard they never try again. For decades, Roy Cohn was one of the most feared men in America. He helped send a woman to an electric chair. He represented mob bosses and called them friends. He destroyed people's careers and then was able to just go home and go to sleep like nothing happened. And he did all of this while carrying a secret that would have ended him, because Roy Cohn spent his entire life hunting people just like himself. It was the early 1950s and America was terrified. The Cold War was escalating. The Soviets had the bomb.
Always remember, the flash of an atomic bomb can come at any time, no matter where you may be. If you are not close to home when you hear the warning, go to the nearest safe cover.
And politics into a frenzy. The idea that communist spies had already buried into American life.
Crusade for freedom is your chance and mine to fight communism.
Fear was truly everywhere. And Roy, just 23 years old at that time, saw an opportunity in every inch of that fear. He attached himself to the prosecution of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, a married couple accused of passing atomic secrets to the Soviet Union.
He's accused with Julius Rosenberg, electrical engineer, of conspiring to give Russia vital secrets of the atom bomb. Rosenberg's wife is also accused of complicity in the plot against the country's security.
The evidence against Julius was strong. Against Ethel, it was rather thin and built largely on the testimony of her own brother, a man many believed had been pressured into testifying against her. But Roy didn't care. He threw himself into this case with a ferocity that even unsettled his colleagues. He wasn't there for nuance. He wasn't there for a reasonable doubt. He wanted the death penalty and he wanted credit. In 1953, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were executed in the electric chair. Years later, Roy would brag that he personally pressured the judge to hand down the death penalty. Whether it was true did not matter. He wanted people to believe it. He wasn't just proud of winning, he was proud of the bodies.
Despite widespread protest and calls for clemency nationwide, the Rosenbergs were executed as planned at Sing Sing prison.
The Rosenberg trial made Roy famous, and famous was exactly what he needed to be. Within months, he attached himself to Senator Joseph McCarthy. And what these two men shared more than anything else was this: they both understood that you didn't need proof, you just needed doubt. The accusation was the weapon. At 26 years old, Roy was appointed chief counsel to McCarthy's Senate Investigations Subcommittee. Suddenly, he had the power to summon anyone in America into a hearing room and question their loyalty in front of a national television audience. And Roy did not waste that power. He would drag someone onto national television, demand they name names, and if they refused, they would treat that refusal as proof of guilt. It was like cooperate and you destroyed your friends, or resist and you destroyed yourself. Men and women who had done nothing wrong. School teachers, writers, government clerks, people who had maybe attended one left-leaning meeting a decade ago were suddenly fed into this machine and came out with nothing. Roy wasn't looking for guilty people. He was just looking for victims. As sick as it was, he enjoyed it. But eventually, Roy overreached. And what brought this whole thing crashing down was, of all things, a young man that Roy cared deeply about. David Shine was everything that Roy was not. Effortlessly charming, casually wealthy, the heir to a hotel fortune who moved through these elite circles like he belonged in them because, well, he did. Roy and David had become inseparable. David traveled with Roy on investigations, sat beside him at hearings. It had an intensity to it that went far beyond friendship and beyond professional loyalty. Roy, who spent his whole career being feared, seemed around David to be something that he almost never was: vulnerable. Then David was drafted, and something happened to Roy that had never happened before. He panicked. Roy began pressuring military officials relentlessly, calling in favors, making demands, insisting that David receive special treatment, lighter duties, protection from overseas deployment. In 1954, the Army McCarthy hearings exploded onto national television.
I want to make it clear that the United States Army does not coddle communists. This committee knows that. The American people know that.
For weeks, millions of Americans watched as military officials accused Roy and McCarthy of abusing their power, all to protect one man that Roy wanted close to him. Day after day, America watched. And then the Army's attorney, Joseph Welch, said the one thing that nobody dared say out loud.
Let us not assassinate this lad further, Senator. You've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
The room went still. The audience erupted. And something shifted in America that never shifted back. The Senate censored McCarthy. His career was finished, and Roy slipped out of Washington quietly and disappeared back to New York. And it seemed that New York suited Roy better anyways. In Washington, power had rules. But in New York, Roy could really write his own. He rebuilt himself as a private attorney, though that word barely captured what he actually was. Roy was a fixer, a weapon for hire. His client list read like a who's who of people who should never be in the same room together. Wealthy developers, media moguls, political operatives, and men whose names appeared regularly in organized crime investigations. His method never changed. Someone threatens you, don't defend yourself, attack them first. Sue them, humiliate them publicly, make the cost of them coming at you so steep that nobody ever tries again. Fear was Roy's most valuable currency. And then in 1973, he met a man by the name of Donald Trump. The federal government had a civil rights lawsuit accusing the Trump real estate operation of systematically discriminating against Black tenants.
This was one of the greatest racial bias cases of its time.
Refusing to rent to them, steering them away. It was a very serious case, and the evidence was significant. Most developers probably would have negotiated quietly, paid a fine, and moved on. But Donald Trump didn't want to move on, and someone told him to call Roy. Both Roy and Donald met at a private club in Manhattan. Roy picked up that government's lawsuit, looked it over, and smiled. Within days, he had filed a $100 million countersuit against the Justice Department, accusing them of defamation. It was almost certainly going to fail, and Roy knew that. But that wasn't the point. The point was the message: you came for us, we're coming for you. Harder, terrifying man. Donald Trump had never seen anything like it. Roy didn't just refuse to apologize. He made the other side feel like they should be apologizing to him, and Donald Trump never forgot it. Roy became his mentor, his blueprint for how power actually worked. Attack, always attack, never let them see you bleed. Donald absorbed every lesson, and Roy, for his part, had found something he'd always wanted, someone willing to take his philosophy all the way. But even as Roy's power grew, the contradiction at the center of his life was becoming impossible to contain because Roy Cohn was gay. His close friends knew. The journalists who covered him knew. The political and social circles he moved in throughout Manhattan knew. I mean, every summer, Roy went to Provincetown, the small Cape Cod town that had quietly become a safe haven for our community. He was, by all accounts, the closest to himself that he ever allowed. Relaxed, open, happy even. And then he'd come back to New York and the mask would come back on. Here's what makes Roy Cohn's story something beyond hypocrisy. While Roy was running Senate investigations that destroyed the careers of gay federal employees, while he helped fuel what would become known as a lavender scare, a systematic government purge that forced thousands of gay men and women out of their jobs on the grounds that homosexuality made them security threats, Roy was going home to the exact life he was helping to criminalize. He wasn't just a bystander. He wasn't just caught up in it. Roy was running it. He understood that in 1950s Washington, being labeled as homosexual was almost as dangerous as being labeled as a communist. And he used that fear as a weapon against others. He helped build a world where gay people lived in constant fear of exposure. And then he went home to the life he helped make impossible for everybody else. By the early 1980s, something was happening in New York, in San Francisco, in cities across America that most people didn't have words for.
A mystery disease known as the gay plague has become an epidemic unprecedented in the history of American medicine.
Federal health officials say as many as 1 million Americans may have been infected with the AIDS virus, and more than 12,000 are expected to develop the deadly disease next year.
Young men were getting sick, not just sick, they were wasting away. Their immune systems collapsing. Infections that a healthy body would fight off in days were killing them in just weeks. Hospitals were starting to fill, and doctors were frightened and confused. Men who had built lives and loves were watching each other die, and America looked away. Government officials stayed silent. Funding was withheld. The Reagan administration refused to even say the word for years. Patients were abandoned in hospitals. Some men died alone because their own families wouldn't come. The people who should have demanded action, who had the power to move the resources, change policies, and save lives, did nothing. And Roy watched all of it, because by the mid-1980s, Roy was sick too. People in his circles started talking, and Roy, who had built an entire career on never showing weakness, never retreating, never admitting to anything, denied it.
When I talk to friends and tell them that I am doing a profile of Roy Cohn, they say, ask him this, please. And I'm sure you know what they tell me to ask you. Do you have AIDS?
Oh, no. That's easy to answer.
The reason I ask is that
I'm just putting this out there because every story matters. Every story matters. The facade, the stage play behind everything. Who do you have in office that have these type of thoughts? Who do you vote for? Who do you put in these places, these high places? Huh? Do you know these people? Huh? Well, evidently, this guy was one of Trumpeteer's saviors. So I know this is an old story, but you ain't want Aboriginal people living in your spot. So you sued the people that sued you. Well, you sued the justice system. He said, "Fuck the people. Let me sue the justice system." This guy has been running amok for a minute, and look who helped him. You see what I'm saying? These people have no care for you, and they can get out of it. They have no care for you. Yeah, you think things have changed since then? Yes, he had to put on a new image to make things look better. Of course, they were going to have him running for president way back in the day anyway. So we don't need any blemishes, and we got to make sure everything stays tidy. You know what? Yeah, this backroom discussion, bro. Eventually people are gonna look this shit up. So we gotta tidy you up. So no matter what they seen in the past, look at what we got you at now. You're at the top seat. We were gonna give you that seat regardless. We got shit to do. Our plan has to come together, and you're in our plans from the early 1900s, late 1800s, according to this Donald Trump or Barron Trump or Barron chilling out with this old dude named Dunn. So you got a boy named Barron hanging out with an old dude named Dunn, going on motherfucking Fantasyland trips. Sound like you bitches are tripping. Sound like you're on acid tripping, huh? And then you see how these cats got cats that'll come and save them. So just another little twist and turn into the Trumpster saga, huh? How they can get out of anything and make money off of it. Oh, you said you're gonna sue me? Wait a minute. All right, come here real quick. Bang. Counter sue, bitch. Yeah, got your ass. Counter sued your ass, huh?
Damn. Oh, shit. Hold on. Oh, man, where am I? Where have I been? Type in Slavic. Type in Slavic slave. Slavic slaves. Slavic slaves refers to the widespread enslavement of Slavic people in Eastern and Central Europe during the Middle Ages, leading to their name becoming the root of the English word slave. Dang, this practice was part of a large Damn. The word slave comes from Slavic. Oh, shit. Hold on. Oh, man, where am I? Where have I been? Type in Slavic. Type in Slavic slave. Slavic slaves. Slavic slaves refers to the widespread enslavement of Slavic people in Eastern and Central Europe during the Middle Ages, leading to their name becoming the root of the English word slave. Dang, this practice was part of a large Eurasian trade network that supplied slaves to the...
What do you know about Black history?
I guess.
What does it mean to you?
I guess like what most people think comes up.
The word slave was coined out of the Slavic people.
Yeah.
The modern day Ukraine, Russia, Poland.
Yeah, exactly.
They were the original slaves, you know?
Yeah.
That's where the name came from, Slavic. Then they made it slaves. So why is it that when you talk about the Slavic, the current day Slavic people, you don't refer to their history as starting from slavery? But when it comes to an African man, you always want to point it out. I believe it's about time that, we start to push our own history out there, our own narrative. Our history did not start with slavery.
Yeah.
That's musician Jack Johnson. And if you haven't seen my video on this, well, don't worry. Up and show you something that none of you are ready for. First, I'm going to cut right to the chase and just show you a few things before I really show you something. The symmetry is all there, in all the ways, in all the different pictures. And so are the marks. And what I'm going to show you in just a second isn't for the faint of heart. It really isn't. Now, a lovely little birdie named Benny sent me this photo with you-know-who saying, don't believe anything I say, except it's not with you-know-who, it's with the other one. And when you see what's on the rest of this picture, now here's the full picture. And in a second, I'm going to show you some things, and I'm not going to say a lot for censorship purposes. The first thing I want to draw your attention to is right there. And I want to show you how similar it looks to that, just flipped. And while you might not know what it means, it's not the only symbol by a long shot. Not only that one there, but also right there. Right there, that looks an awful lot like. Again, you might not know what it means, but... And did you notice the shirt he was wearing? Kind of looks like an owl, doesn't it? An owl with a blindfold. An owl blindfolded. In that practice, it means distorted wisdom, blinded spiritual insight, or a presence of lurking evil and deception. While owls usually represent clear vision and darkness and high wisdom, a blindfolded owl represents humanity's failure to see truths or corruption. Now I'm doing absolutely everything in my power every single day to help take that blindfold off so you can see what's truly going on and who's truly running this world. Now, if you're new to me and my content, you just need to know that I am a kind, caring individual who just wants to help. I was a high school teacher for 20 years before I woke up, and I've been given a gift to see through their evil and expose it. But of course, all this for entertainment purposes. I'm sure that's just doppelgangers, and they don't really like to tell us the truth right in plain sight. It's just a bunch of coincidences. Entertainment only.
On the morning of June 14th, 1780, the fearful war whoop was heard, and a raiding party of Ohio Valley Shawnee Indians rode down a ridgeline and attacked them. Captain Moore was shot 7 times before being tomahawked and scalped. The Indians then murdered 3 of his children, leaving only his daughters who were locked inside the cabin. Much like the Barbary pirates, the Indians broke into the house, shot the dogs, plundered and burned the home, killed the livestock, and took Moore's wife and surviving children captive. The raiding party stole horses and embarked on a journey to Detroit, which was then an open-air market for humans captured by Indians. To give you a sense of the savagery of the Indians, when one of the surviving sons, John, fell behind on the journey, Indians split his head open with a tomahawk and then told John's mother what happened with her son's bloody scalp hanging in his waistband. They reached Detroit in December, where in a drunken frolic, one of the surviving daughters, Mary Moore, was sold into slavery for a few gallons of rum to a man named Stogwell, who had been an active Tory during the war and had removed to Canada after it closed for fear of losing his life if he remained in the United States. 3 years later, she was rescued by her brother and returned to the United States. Stories like Mary Moore's were common in the early frontier period in America, and often the stories became nationwide bestsellers. The vast majority of white slaves in the United States were owned by fellow whites. Somewhere between 60 and 70% of white immigrants to the American colonies arrived in bondage, often involuntarily. An estimated
Mind you, these stories are being told by the white man saying that they were enslaved in America. Why would you do that? And then you go back and say, but the real story is the Europeans did this to us. They brought us over here as slaves. So Europeans brought Europeans over here as indentured servants is the story they tell you. So which one is fake? Huh? Did the Indians come get you, or did you write that story? That's what the guy said, that these are just y'all stories to make it sound extravagant, to make it sound dangerous. But in all actuality, what y'all saying happened is that y'all fellow brother brought y'all over here as indentures, huh? That's what you're saying. But mind you, you motherfucker was over there getting snatched up already. So then you bring some over here. Is that the story you're sticking with? God damn. You almost had me for a minute there. Which story is it? You motherfuckers got so many stories on stories on stories on stories that y'all only wrote.
later, she was rescued by her brother and returned to the United States. Stories like Mary Moore's were common in the early frontier period in America. Stories became nationwide bestsellers. The vast majority of white slaves in the United States were owned by fellow whites. Somewhere between 60 and 70% of white immigrants to the American colonies arrived in bondage, often involuntarily. An estimated 350,000 arrived between 1620 and 1776, in numbers that likely far exceeded the number of black slaves who arrived in the 1600s. Mortality rates on the journey to the colonies often exceeded 20%. Many of them were legally classified as indentured servants under British law, Indentured servitude was, in theory, a contract entered between a poor person and a sponsor, in which the sponsor pays for the poor person's transit across the Atlantic in exchange for a set period of bondage. That, however, is the textbook definition. Reality was much harsher. In the early colonial period, there were not substantial differences between indentured servants and black slaves. Many were subjected to conditions of such brutality, duration, and heritability that historians increasingly regard slave as the more accurate term. There's no question that indentured servitude was slavery. Some indenture contracts literally use the term slave, and ads issued for runaway servants asked for them to be returned to their for life. Many of them were sent here against their will. At the outbreak of the revolution in 1776, more than 50,000 convicts were sent to the colonies as slave laborers. There were all sorts of sources of white slavery. They were the convicts, the urban poor, political prisoners, thieves, prostitutes, vagrants, prisoners of war, anyone designated undesirable by the British government. In the winter of 1650, 150 ragged Scottish prisoners of war arrived at Massachusetts Bay Colony, where they were sold as indentured laborers for 20 to 30 pounds each. And in colonial America, white and black slaves often bonded, according to NPR, which admits America's first slaves were white.
According to some African-American historians, there was no sign or little sign of racial tension between the English servants, which we reckon were slaves, and the African servants, who are also called servants. They were treated in much the same way for many decades. They complained together. They ran away together. They rebelled together.
George
Your boy is a motherfucking lie. Ain't no such thing as an African slave in the Americas. No Aboriginal person that you see here, dark skinned, that talk like I talk like you hear these country Arab folk talking, can't really say words the right way. You know what I'm saying? And you got people that speak with a very, very nice tongue of this Aboriginal black. So-called black, so-called African American. This again is their story that they're able to tell. You know why they're able to tell these stories? Because they're writing the books. They'll write 1,000 books, 1,000 different authors write the same goddamn lineage of books. So one author is going to pass it to another author like, I need you to go off of this story. No, I'm not even joking. This is really the Federal Writers Project. And also Woodrow Wilson did the same thing. Propaganda. It's called propaganda work. It's called propaganda literature. And they would set this shit on fire all around the world, not just here. Because mind you, Hitler was created by the United States. Mussolini was created by the United States. The whole Arab nations out there were created by the United States. I'm talking about through export. I'm talking about through intelligence. I'm talking about through technology. So I'm bigging up America, not the United States. I'm bigging up America because we would be in this seat regardless. And stop saying that we from Africa. That shit is old. We know that's just part of their story. We definitely got top cats that has already smacked the fuck out of slave voyages. We also got Sharice. We also got BAP, OTK, Cosmon, Smoke Dog, and everybody on the panel. Everybody that slapped slave voyages in the motherfucking face. We know that shit is not real. And if it is real, you better check the people who were actually on these ships. Because I'm going to tell you right now, it wasn't no goddamn African being brought here by a European ever as an indentured servant or as a slave. So when they're talking about somebody being enslaved that's black, that's a social construct that they're making up in the 1900s with this to take our land. That's how these stories came about. Because if they put us in Africa, guess what they get to do? Take the land on paper. They take the land on paper. So now you owe property tax to something you never paid property tax to. And if you don't pay it because you don't know you owe it, they take your land. And they come in with force because now they got a United States Navy. Now they got a United States Army. And guess who's in there? A lot of our ass is in there not knowing the background to the background of the shit. Because again, generationally, the story stopped being passed on who you were and who you are. You can't even trace yourself back to Africa. Nowhere. You know what the story they give you? They give you a fucking religion land story. You know why? Because they burnt all the papers. Yeah. They burnt all the papers, but we know you from there. Bitch, hollers. Boy, we are not playing with y'all fucking history no more. We're not playing with your history no more. We see what happens when we keep on jet lagging on you motherfuckers telling us these stories, and we gotta believe. There's no option. You gotta believe your story. If we go against what you're saying, we're conspiracy theorists. We want to call everything a hoax. Why are you talking about that? No, the history is not correct. The history is definitely not correct. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody was from Africa during that time. Africans as a whole just started getting here after 1960. And Lyndon B. Johnson is the one who, in 1965, signed this Immigration Act. And that's the first big wave of Africans coming from the continent of Africa to America. There are no ships that exist that say that Europeans sail from Europe to Africa to the Americas. There's no such shipping system that actually allowed the people that were being enslaved to do that. They can create the slave voyages, of course, and put all that data in there and then put us in there with that data. And you're a motherfucking lie. That shit has not been proven. Yeah, but what is proven is that you did come over here on a ship. So stop saying we came over here on a ship. Show your ship records. Show where your grandma is actually from. Were they indentured servants? Your great great grandma? Were they their indentured servants? Is that how you got here, or were you all, or did you come here by way of Ellis Island after the indentured servitude shut down, which would have been 1965? So if you check the real ruling, they were stopping indentured servitude all around. It wasn't to stop African slavery. It was to stop indentured servitude in 1865, excuse me. That was to end indentured servitude, which was also called slavery. But with propaganda art and literature, now they can say that, oh, actually, the real slave is these people that came from Africa. Bitch, you ain't got no goddamn ship to prove that ship. You ain't got no ship to prove a ship. It's a story. It's a make-believe story. And just like I just showed how those people will go so far as to say, hey, you got to strike first and never show weakness. That's what they're doing to us. They struck first with this history and changing time and making a bunch of different immigrants come here on the same wave they on. And some of these immigrants don't even know what's going on. They don't. They see the story that they were played. They got hypnotized like Blanca in Street Fighter movie. They were just they had the goggles on. They had to watch this shit like, oh, okay. Oh, that's damn. Yeah, don't mess with those people. They're evil. They'll do all this. No, these people took our land and we've been nothing but nice. That means a fool.
Washington himself had white slaves.
The beginning of your War of Independence, your Revolutionary War, there were ads in the Virginia Gazette for runaways, and I think that week there were something like 11 for white runaways and 3 for black runaways, and 2 of the 11 white runaways were being advertised by George Washington.
In early Virginia farming, conditions were so bad that 40 to 50% died before completing their terms. A 1671 report from Virginia Governor William Berkeley noted that the number of white slaves arriving vastly outnumbered black, quote, "We suppose that
they were treated in much the same way for many decades. They complained together, they ran away together, they rebelled together."
George Washington himself had white slaves.
The beginning of your War of Independence, Revolutionary War, there were ads in the Virginia Gazette for runaways, and I think that week there were something like 11 for white runaways and 3 for black runaways, and 2 of the 11 white runaways were being advertised by George Washington.
In early Virginia and Maryland, indentured servants, mostly English, Irish, and Scottish, did the same jobs that enslaved Africans would do in the 19th century, mostly tobacco farming. Conditions were so bad that 40 to 50% died before completing their terms. A 1671 report from Virginia Governor William Berkeley noted that the number of white slaves arriving vastly outnumbered black, quote, "We suppose there come in of servants about 1,500, of which most are English, few Scotch, fewer Irish, and not above 2 or 3 ships of Negroes in 7 years." He then went on to note that in the early years of the colony, 80% of servants did not survive the first year. But it wasn't just the slaves that were multiracial. It was the slaveholders too. At slavery's peak in 1860, thousands of slaves were owned by Choctaws, Cherokees, Creeks, and Chickasaw Indians. As Alan Taylor writes in the book American Colonies, the Iroquois were particularly brutal in this regard. In colonial America, the Iroquois would often subject captives, the ones they did not enslave, to ritualistic slaughter and cannibalism in which captives
Now, mind you, there's these guys telling their propaganda literature story. Those Aboriginals did hold indentured servants. You can go back to the first ever Slavic or indentured servant holder. So every time they're talking about an African slave trade, who was in North Africa? Okay, as a slave first. Let me guess, the white people. Okay, then I'm not gonna let these people keep telling this stupid ass history, bro. Look at here. Somebody deserves the truth. In my opinions, if you can prove them as fact, oh my God. Hey, and again, look, it's nothing against anybody. This is against the history that everybody's being told about a certain people. We ain't trying to be godlike or anything like that. We don't want to be your gods. We want our shit back, and for you to understand who shit this is and who we are. You know what? And that'll be all the reparations we need, because that'll give us our shit back. And like I said, we don't even want no reparation. We want our shit. You know what? Pay us for what you guys have created on our land. This still our land. We never sold it. We were coerced out of it. Coerced out of it. But again, you see that they're saying that Indians held Slavs as well. We're not playing that game. You know what they're talking about when they say Slavs or slave. They're talking about the Slavs. We're gonna. Hey, I didn't make the video. I'm commentating over the top of the video. Somebody else made the video that said there were white slaves being held by the Choctaw. Of course, in propaganda literature, they're gonna say what? What are they gonna say in propaganda literature? They're gonna say that Africans were also being held by these people. Yeah, because the Aboriginal is the actual Indian. So again, they take stories and flip them. They give our actual history to somebody else and then they write them a history. No, this is all done with ink and paper. And they put it in books. And guess who books they were putting it in? Your books, motherfucker. Didn't you go to school and learn that your ass was an African slave? So they putting it somewhere. It's in a book, motherfucker. Plenty of them. Why does everybody know that story but don't know the real history? Yeah. See, this Yakubian drop, this whole Epstein drop. Yeah. If you ain't paying attention right now, that they running the play whether you know it or not. Whether we say something or not, something it can be said, but they don't give a fuck. Yeah. Did you turn off the faucet? No, you didn't turn off the Federal Reserve System. So the water shall run their way.
Would be tied to the stake, stabbed, then proctors. Quote, after the victim died, the women butchered his remains, cast them into cooking kettles, and served the stew to the entire village, so that all could be bound together in absorbing the captive's power. At the outbreak of the Civil War, one of South Carolina's wealthiest citizens was a planter and slaveholder named William Ellison. Census records show that at the outset of the Civil War, he owned 63 slaves, making him one of the biggest slave owners in the region. During the Civil War, he and his sons made substantial donations to the Confederate.
And we already know that they faked a lot of that shit on the census. Mind you, the census was not visible to the common person until after 1942, and still people never saw it. Again, my mama never saw a goddamn census. So we're talking about in today's time. So you actually have to go to a library and request a census of some shit. You just don't get censuses. You think they're just sending censuses out? They can put whatever they want to on the census. Think it's a 72-year span from when they take the census to when they actually drop it to the public. Now, how are you dropping the census to the public prior to the internet or prior to so my mother would have had to go to a library and ask request for the census, had to pay something to even view the census. You can't take it from the library, you can just view it in the library. That's how you could see it after 1942. And I'm talking about from 1790 to the 1870 census. They put them in a bundle, rewrote all that shit. They had the data because we were taking our own data. So they rewrote all the shit, made us fucking African slaves on the census, made the Asian, the Indian now, and made them the fucking powerful people. This all happened in the 1900s. We're not playing these games no more. This is the Epstein run they're on. They're lapping us. And again, this is propaganda art. You know what? We went around here eating people. So that again is propaganda to make the whole Indian title go down the drain right off the bat. So you saying that these people were not only enslaving people, but they were also eating them and sharing it to have powerful shit happen in their lives. Boy, if y'all don't stop playing, I mean, just the stories they tell, it'd be just redunculous. Yeah, L Religion Land. Give them a pen and they will write your ass a story that never ends.
Pokers. Quote, after the victim died, the women butchered his remains, cast them into cooking kettles, and served the stew to the entire village so that all could be bound together in absorbing the captive's power. At the outbreak of the Civil War, one of South Carolina's wealthiest citizens was a planter and slaveholder named William Ellison. Census records show that at the outset of the Civil War, he owned 63 slaves, making him one of the biggest slave owners in the region. During the Civil War, he and his sons made substantial donations to the Confederate government, but what makes Allison remarkable is that he was a black man. In fact, he was a freed slave whose former master had given him the business skills he needed to become a successful cotton gin manufacturer. He was such a prominent member of South Carolina society that the Charleston Mercury newspaper noted that he was a large slaveholder and is much respected throughout the district for his integrity and general good character. When the American journalist and social critic Frederick Law Olmsted visited Mississippi in the early 1860s, he described meeting a black man who told him there were, quote, many free Negroes all about this region. Some were very rich. He pointed out to me 3 plantations within 20 miles owned by colored men. They bought black folks, he said, and had servants of their own. They were very bad masters, very hard and cruel. If he had got to be sold, he would like best to have an American master by him. The French, black Creole masters were very severe, and they whipped their N-words most to death. They whipped the flesh off them. In total, an estimated 3,000 blacks owned roughly 20,000 slaves in 1860. And in some cases, black slaveholders purchased relatives and spouses philanthropically, rescuing them from other slaveholders. But according to the black historian Carter Godwin Woodson, they often simply bought and sold slaves like white traders. He even described one case in which, quote, a Negro shoemaker
Mind you, who's writing these stories? L Religion Land? Yeah. They gonna make they say they that that the so-called black man was harsh. So you would rather have an American. Boy, y'all not American. The American is the actual Aboriginal. You see how the word American has Aboriginal in it. And dark skinned people, the last time I checked, are the only Aboriginals. Yeah. So the word American, the definition of the word American has the word Aboriginal in it. So the only American can be the Aboriginal. So if you came here on a ship, you ain't the Aboriginal. So these stories right here that you telling are fabricated because we know that you guys were being brought here as indentured servants. Now you're saying that this black man owned slaves, and we know what the word slaves meant during that time. The word slave wasn't put to a so-called black person until the 1900s when you redid the whole census and you wrote black on the census before you put them out. This happened in the 1930s. Stop playing with me. Black people didn't even start calling themselves black until the 1960s. That's just how long it took for us to even see that you were calling us black. And who started that shit? Undercover propagandist? Yeah, black power, bitch. Ain't nobody black around here. What the fuck is he talking about? Yeah. Growing up, if somebody called you black, I'm from Mississippi. It was fighting words. What? Black ass. No, we about to come on outside. So no, stop playing with me. That was an insult. We knew that we were brown. Why would you call me black? Man, we ain't playing these color games with these people no more. I'm brown. I'm Aboriginal. I'm the American. You are part of the United States. You're a United States citizen. The United States is a company. America is a landmass. The American is the Aboriginal. The Aboriginal is a brown-skinned person, period. We ain't comparing ourselves to nobody. We've been here. We ain't Asian. So the Asians that they say came here, they just got here. They literally just got here. So who's the first immigrant here? Is it the uh, slanted eye? Is it the slanted eye immigrant that's the first one here? But by way of the Manila galleon slave trade from Chino to Indian, is that are those the first immigrants to the Americas, or is it the Slavic people who are the first indentured servants to America? That's what now it's a whole nother fight. Who's the first immigrant that came to our land? Did you come here as a slave, quote unquote, indentured servant? Because there was a Chino slave trade. There was a Manila galleon slave trade going on the West Coast. At the same time, you got indentured servants or Slavs or Slavic people, also called slaves, coming here on the East Coast. So, what do you know? America has two different ethnic groups coming here as slaves or indentured servants. They've now changed the story to say that they were the owners. They coming over here on their own ships. No, motherfucker, you were a galley slave, and that's how you got here. What are you talking about? Stop lying.
Baker in Charleston, South Carolina, purchased his wife for $700, but on finding her hard to please, he sold her a few months thereafter for $750. The 1860 census offers some context that's left out of the history textbooks in this country. That year, there were 3,953,760 slaves and 487,970 total free colored population in the slave states in 1860. The reality is that a very small percentage of slavery, there were 360 slaves and 487,970 total free colored population in the slave states in 1860. The reality is that a very small percentage of freed blacks and American Indians owned slaves, but the same is true for white Americans. In the 1860 census, at the very height of slavery, there were 393,975 slave owners in the U.S. out of a total population of over 31 million. That translates to about 1.2% of the population. The vast majority of American whites never owned any slaves. That's a critical point when in the context of modern calls for reparations. As a rule, black slaves in the American South had a life expectancy of 40 years and an annual mortality rate of 3 to 5%. Their odds of getting married, having children, attaining freedom were dramatically higher than slaves in the Caribbean, Brazil, East Africa, or, God forbid, Dahomey. Slaves in the Caribbean lived in barracks. In the South, they had cabins. There's no doubt that being a slave was a bad life, but if you were to be enslaved, it was better to be enslaved in the United States. The clearest metric on this is that the U.S. slaves' population kept growing after slave imports were banned in 1808. Unlike other parts of the Americas where deaths exceeded births, the U.S. ended up with nearly 4 million slaves in 1860, despite only 400,000 arrivals. Now, one reason for the better conditions could be incentives. With the import ban, slave owners' best source of slaves was high birth rates. Buying more was really expensive. The typical price for an able-bodied male field hand in New Orleans in 1860 was about $2,000.
Again, propaganda art. Again, and again. Every time they say slave, they're actually talking about who? The Slavics. During this time, the word slave was never geared toward any Aboriginal person here in the Americas. And again, if you look up the 1828 definition of the word American, you'll see the word Aboriginal. And again, you know that the so called black person is the Aboriginal. So, again, the word American means Aboriginal, inhabitant of this land, America. An Asian can't be an Aboriginal. Damn sure can't be a white person being an Aboriginal. Have you not seen the definition of the word American? What is an American? So all of this propaganda art saying black people were slaves. This is the guy that created Roots got sued because he was lying. That was a white man's story that he was telling. Plagiarized it. Put it on black people. This is propaganda art. I'm not taking this shit no more. Yeah. Acquiescence again with that silence again. Hell to the fuck no. You know what? People gonna be like, "Oh, you better not say nothing, man." That's what got us in this situation. You don't want to say nothing. You want to be nice. You want to be the fool. Yeah. Yeah. That's how these imbeciles can become these top people because you just don't want to say nothing. They good. Let them do their thing. Man, now that shit is affecting you. It is affecting your food you eat, the water you drink, the fucking air you walk through and breathe. What the fuck are you talking about?